Hi everyone, my name is Yan Yan. So I'm Regional Director of Singapore Economic Development Board, EDB for short. I'll be sharing a little bit more about Southeast Asia and how Singapore can be a launchpad for tech startups into the region. So the EDB is a government agency of Singapore, and we undertake investment promotion and industry development. So throughout our 60 years of history, we have been helping some of the world's largest companies, your Fortune 500 companies, to explore Singapore. And in the last decade or so, we've seen so much interest from startups. And we have also been helping startups start off their business in Singapore and grow from there. So we help in 3 different ways. The first one is about provision of information. So Singapore, as you might know, is a pretty easy environment for companies to operate in, but that doesn't mean that there isn't enough, information that the companies need to understand before coming in order to get off to a flying start. So we have a lot of guidebooks and information for companies to better understand what the industry is like in Singapore and what the ecosystem can offer. We also provide connections, not just to the other government agencies, but also research institutes and other private organizations in the ecosystem. And lastly, where relevant, we do provide certain incentives to support kind of cutting edge value-added services and projects, as well as to help companies build their capabilities in Singapore. So I wanted to start on why you need to be in Southeast Asia. I guess if you're already here, you already have a good sense, but I just wanted to touch on that because Singapore is a small market. Whatever we do, whatever companies do is not always just for Singapore, it's really for the region. And then I wanted to touch also on what companies are doing here and how you can scale for the region through Singapore. So Southeast Asia is a region of plenty of business opportunities. It has a population of 650 million people, and by 2030, it will be the 4th largest economy in the world. Actually, I think now the projections is actually much higher than 2.6 trillion. So every year the projections get beaten and it gets higher. So I think it just speaks about how fast the economy is growing right now. But Southeast Asia is not an easy region to navigate. Unlike Europe, where there is shared regulations, fairly homogeneous policies in certain aspects. Southeast Asia is made up of 11 countries. More than 20 languages are spoken. And, for a company to capture the right opportunities, they need to be able to navigate that differences. Basically, Southeast Asia has entered into what we call a digital decade, and companies can stand to grow quite rapidly if they can capture the right opportunities. So VC investments into the region has increased more than 5 times in the last 5 years. And in 2021 alone, more unicorns were minted than we ever had before. And Singapore contributed 10 unicorns to that. So that's about Southeast Asia, and I hope, now you're a bit excited about, what you can potentially do there. We'll turn the lens to where I'm from. I'm from Singapore, and this is typically what people think of Singapore. When I say Singapore, they think that, we are a financial hub, we are a services hub. And for those of you who have visited us as tourists, then maybe a garden city or as like a tourist hotspot. We are also very well known to be a stopover where, Changi Airport, you kind of stop over there on your way to, say, Australia or New Zealand from Europe. And of course, our food, that's something that is quite well renowned. But I think we also want people to know that actually Singapore is a investing in several areas. So one is that we are a keynote in global supply chains. We actually still have a very vibrant manufacturing sector. So manufacturing actually contributes 20% of our GDP, and this number will continue to maintain in the years to come. We're also a top pharma and medtech hotspot. We manufacture the top 5 drugs by revenue globally in Singapore. And we also actually have a high percentage of wafer fabs here in Singapore as well. We like to work very closely, and when I say we, it's really the government working very closely with industry to innovate. We know what people say about government and industry relations, and sometimes, in certain places, the government can be, restricting industries in certain ways through regulations. But we try to be a little bit more, collaborative, and we want to ensure that there is space and room for innovation to flourish. So one example would be how actually in Singapore, we are one of the first places where cell culture meats were approved for sale to consumers. And even 2 years later, there's only one other country that has done so. So this is basically 3 case studies that I wanted to show on how companies leverage Singapore as a business destination. The first one is using us as a test bed. So a German air mobility company called Velocopter actually test bedded their air taxi service in Singapore. They flew from Marina Bay Sands, which you can see in the background, all the way to Sentosa, which is an island kind of off our southern shores. And they are actually getting ready for their commercial launch in 2024. Some companies also use us as a base to find corporate customers. We do have a number of corporate innovation labs and programs and accelerator programs in Singapore. So they basically participate in these programs and through that, secure their corporate clients. So one example is Jumper AI, which is a AI chat function. They participated in the Facebook Accelerator, and after that, they actually secured 50 new enterprise clients and had 20 times month-on-month revenue growth. They have since now sold the business and exited. And the last example is Wise, the payment transfer service. So when I talked a little bit about regulation just now and how we try to be more collaborative, this is also another example where Wise worked with the Monetary Authority of Singapore to integrate the national database for customer verification for your KYC into the Wise systems. So that means that someone, if you're applying for Wise in Singapore, you actually get it instantly because all of the verifications are done via our national database. And this has been used as a kind of best practice for many other countries that Wise operates in. They have plans to add more than 200 staff in Singapore in the next 5 years, and they've announced that will make them about 400 staff in total here. Okay, so I talked a lot about Southeast Asia and Singapore, and now I'm getting to exactly how some of the various how you can plug into some of the opportunities there. So the first one is about business development, and I talked a little bit about the innovation challenges just now. So this is one of the platforms, the Open Innovation Network. It kind of aggregates both the government and the corporate innovation challenges in a single place. So you can take a look at some of the opportunities there and the calls for solutions. Next is the IMDA. IMDA is a sister agency of EDB, so it's the Infocom Development Authority, and they have accreditation program. So the accreditation program actually basically kind of does a pre-check on B2B software companies, and if you pass the criteria and you get accredited, that means that you kind of get a mark of approval, and that opens up opportunities for you to sell your solutions to more than 250 government agencies and corporations in the platform. Lastly, you might want to think about how you want to set up your team. Besides hiring locally, you might also want to bring in some of your leadership or technical talent that is required for your business. And we have various visa schemes tailored for the tech sector. So one of it is called Tech at SG, where once you get the endorsement from the Ministry of Manpower, it provides certainty in terms of your employment pass applications. We also have what we call the Connections Concierge, where you can contact various service providers that have been vetted by EDB. And through them, you can get not just talent recruitment services, but also things like setting up your company and accounting and all the things that you need in order to get your company started. And lastly, if you want to find out a little bit more about what the talent ecosystem is like here, you can also download this guide that's available on our website. Okay, so I talked about, getting your customer, building up your team, and, the last bit is really about where you should site your office, and one of such possibilities could be a very new and upcoming area in northeast Singapore. It's called Punggol Digital District, and the benefits about this place is that it has what they call open digital platform, which allows for cross-industry data sharing and test bidding in a real-life environment. There's also a university where you can kind of collaborate with them, not just on research, but also getting their students to support your businesses. And most of the government agencies in the cybersecurity space and the industry associations are also there. So lastly, just wanted to touch on that you can kind of innovate with a peace of mind because of our world-class IP protection frameworks. A lot of companies actually file their IP and do a lot of innovation work here in Singapore, not just, business development or HQ services. And we are within a 4-hour flight radius of Southeast Asia. So companies do tap on our 28 free trade agreements to kind of, ship out their products. We also have what we call Singapore Plus model, where we get the region together to collaborate. And one example would be the Nongsa Digital Park in Batam, where it kind of offers convenient access to a cost-efficient talent pool and a site for some of the data centers to serve the region. Yeah, so in summary, just wanted to touch on 3 key takeaways from the presentation. The first one is about capturing opportunities among our pool of corporates and government agencies and our SMEs through the open innovation platforms, and kind of also visiting Singapore. I mean, this week is the Singapore Week of Innovation and Technology, and basically, it's a gathering of the startup ecosystem here, and a lot of discussions are undertaken at this point. Tap on programs such as Tech SG and some of our plug-and-play infrastructure like Punggol Digital District to smoothen your entry and operations. And lastly, leverage on our FTAs and our partners with regional networks to get going very quickly. So if you have any questions about Singapore, feel free to, go on to what we call the Singapore Investment Clinic. There are several how-to videos to help tech companies to set up in Singapore and Southeast Asia. And there's also a live chat function. You can contact us there if you have any questions. So do take a look. And if you want to be informed of what's going on in Singapore and Southeast Asia, get the latest event invitations, please subscribe to us as well. And feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them. Thank you.